Hello everybody, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video, and our first video covering the United Football League. Of course, if you don't know what the United Football League is, the spring version of professional football, however you want to interpret it. But I decided that we're going to cover this on this channel, and I've jumped right into it. I'll be honest with you, I kind of planned in my head to like mentally prepare to, actually do some United Football League content here soon. But then I realized, oh crap, the game is literally tomorrow, and it's like with less than 24 hours at the time of recording this, and I need to actually prep and record some videos for it to actually get prepared for it. Now, with this league being literally a fourth of the size of the NFL, I'm going to put a lot of things in one video. That's preseason predictions and the week 1 power rankings and predictions, just because literally it's covering 18s versus 32, so it's going to make it a whole lot easier just to go ahead and boom, 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 knock it all out. Before we get right into the video though, guys, please leave a like down below, comment any suggestions for the videos going forward, and let us know how you like the United Football League content. I'm going to be doing this solo. No one else really has any interest to be covering this, so I'm just going to tackle it myself, and we're going to see how it goes, see how the content lands, and all that good stuff. But without further ado, guys, let's get right into the video. The United Football League, of course, is the joint operation of the XFL and the USFL, who are two leagues that were spring football for the last couple years. XFL has been up and down. USFL, I believe, has been around for a minute, and they decided to come together and put the best of the best players that aren't in the NFL into one league. So that's pretty cool, and I actually think it's a really cool concept, and I think it's a nice little appetizer to keep people refreshed before the NFL season, and that's why I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be enjoying it because there's 4 games, one of them each week is probably going to be good. It has some unique rules that I think the NFL could probably adapt to. I think the NFL with a joint operation with the UFL could be really successful. Let the UFL be like the NXT of the main roster of the NFL, that type of deal. Kind of similar how college works, but you get what I'm saying. Kind of like we're free agents in the NFL, then go to the UFL for now. Good stuff. Beside the point though, all the teams as you see are kind of separated on screen. XFL is on the left side, the San Antonio Brahmas, the St. Louis Battlehawks, the DC Defenders, and the Arlington Renegades. The USFL is with the Birmingham Stallions, the Houston Roughnecks, the Memphis Showboats, and the Michigan Panthers. Now, I'm not going to go over the whole history of each of these leagues and all that good stuff, so if you want to go see that good sports, I'll leave a link down below. Has a really good video on just a quick and easy type appetizer for it. I'm not all that familiar with the leagues either. I've never watched a game of either one of these. I'm going to it fresh. I barely know anybody's names. I barely know anybody's logos and their history. I kind of refreshed, and I'm going into the season pretty much with new expectations. Like I'm going into this with just a little bit of an appetizer to know what I'm getting myself into, and that's it. That's so you can join me on this journey as we figure out how this UFL league's going to work, and I'm just going to help you help digest the information that we're going to be receiving, throughout the weeks. Either way, it's a 10-week season. That means each of these teams will play each other once, with 1 week or with additional 3 weeks for their conference counterparts. So the XFL conference and the USFL conference kind of work as divisions, but they also just work as one whole conference. So take it as that. Now, without further ado, we're going to go right into the preseason predictions of the XFL and the USFL standings and such. Let's clarify a couple things too. Their playoff actual bracket will work very similar to how divisions work, or how conferences work pretty much. The top seed, number 1, will host a game at home against the second seed of that conference in the playoffs, called the conference playoffs, and then the winners of those games will then play off into their Super Bowl type deal. I don't know if they're calling it a certain name, their championship. We'll get the information as that goes on, to be honest with you. Either way, we're going to go into the standings, my preseason predictions for each of these teams. So this is the XFL conference. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is where I end up seeing these teams landing. Basically, 1 being they win the conference, 2 being they are second in the conference, and 4 basically meaning they're the loser of the conference. And we'll see how this kind of lines up. I'll be honest with you, I don't have any crazy predictions for each of these teams because, again, I'm going in this with fresh expectations, pretty much with just what information I'm getting and kind of the feeling I'm getting from the teams, the players, the free agencies, the coaches that are there. I'm just going to kind of go into it. Meaning the number 4 spot is going to be probably everybody's number 4 spot, the San Antonio Brahmas. Overall, top to bottom, they don't seem like a team that has everything. They didn't do very well in the season before, or last season with all the players. They didn't really gain much. They kind of have a decent defense. Their coaching staff is struggling. It seems like their even offense is a little bit shaky. Now, what's really cool about the XFL and the USFL, the USFL, whatever it's called, the conference, All these teams seem to be able to beat other teams in this whole league. Like even the San Antonio Brahmas, even though I'm stating that they are the worst team in the XFL, I still think they could probably easily beat the number 1 team, just because I think all these teams have a similar vibe with them. I think we're going to see some separation as time goes on, but even then, I just think the San Antonio Brahmas will not be able to have the longevity throughout the season to be one of the better teams in the league, much less the XFL, or XFL, much less the league, that type of deal. So I'm going to put the San Antonio Brahmas in 4th place for this season. 3rd place, I'm going to put the Arlington Renegades, which is going to be a really controversial opinion, because they were the winner of the XFL last year, I believe. They had a really good Cinderella story. I think they went like 4-6, made the playoffs, won the first round, and beat the DC Defenders, which was arguably one of the best teams in the XFL at the time, and managed to win and get that whole title. And it was a good Cinderella story. They have a good offense, they have a great defense from what it seems like, and a good coaching staff that seem to be passionate about the team. However, I just think the XFL has 2 other really good teams that I think are going to be talented and ready to go to win the XFL conference, or at least compete for the XFL conference. So I think the Arlington Renegades are going to come up a little bit short. I don't think their whole coaching staff, all that is going to be redefined just enough. Plus, I think a good slump for the championship winner, I think, is also probably likely, but we'll see. I'm going to go that their whole team's not totally refined to be consistent like that. So we're going to see how the Renegades do this season, but they are my number 3 spot. Number 2, I have the St. Louis Battlehawks. This was a team that was expected to do really well, and I believe they lost the first round of the playoffs, unfortunately, just narrowly not making it to the actual championship. But they also have one of the most passionate and most weirdly starred XFL team, or USF team, because they have a really passionate fan base. They have a really passionate coaching staff. They have a really passionate quarterback, from what it seems like. Again, I'm not too familiar with names right now, so we're going to hopefully learn that as time goes on in the recap videos and stuff like that too. So the Battlehawks are actually a team I see doing well, and I think they were narrowly just beaten out. I think they have a team that can get momentum going with the fan base behind them. I think people want to see them succeed, so I'm going to put the St. Louis Battlehawks at number 2. Number 1, I'm putting the obvious number 1 team here, I think, in the whole league, much less the XFL. The DC Defenders, I think, just top to bottom, seem like the team. They seem like the team that has the stacked team from top to bottom. Great coaching staff from top to bottom. Great defense. Pretty dang good offense. So it's hard for me to judge, especially the DC Defenders. I think they only lost 1 game outside the postseason. And so I can't really, at least last season. So I can't really doubt them too much for, I think a lot of people want some crazy expectations. But DC Defenders going into the season didn't look like they got any worse. So why not just say, hey, DC Defenders top the board here? It's not the most exciting, but it's not very controversial, but whatever. It's my pick for the winner of the XFL. Now, for the USFL, it's a little bit. It feels like a little bit weaker of a conference. Feels like the XFL is like the AFC. The USFL feels like the NFC. So we'll see how that kind of ends up lining up for us. The Memphis Showboats actually seem like a decent roster, decent team, but they're just kind of not something I'm excited about. It seems a lot like the Roughnecks, I believe, right? Brahmas. That they're not really redefined. They don't really have much in terms of consistency. They did fine last season from what it seemed like, but they kind of were just middle of the pack. They kind of just had a couple good games. It seemed like they have a fine coach. Seems like they have a fine situation. It's just that I'm not passionate about them doing well this season. With 3 other teams, I think that just moderately do well or better. The Michigan Panthers are a team I kind of knocked down a little bit because it seems like they also flukily got into a prime position last year. But it seems like they still have a great roster. It seems like they actually improved quite a bit. It seems like the Michigan Panthers just overall could use a lot of improvement and could honestly could be 4th, but honestly could be 2nd. So that's kind of what in my mind I was like, okay, number 3 seems like a proper spot for them. We'll give the Memphis Showboats down here, and Michigan Panthers I think could line up somewhere in the 3 spot. So whatever. Number 2 though, Houston Roughnecks seem like a competitive team. Seem like a rough, really good defensive team that could really highlight the strengths of the USFL. And could be a kind of shining star. Again, it's a team that I can see being in the 4th spot, but I think can have a lot higher of a ceiling than the Michigan Panthers. I think they are going to be able to do well, play competitively against these teams, and it seems like their coaching staff especially will be able to make some magic happen. The Birmingham Stallions, again, is the really exciting pick here. The Birmingham Stallions won their USFL league last year and seemed like a top-down best roster around too. DC Defenders and them seem like the number 1 and number 2 teams basically just because of how well their teams are stacked. Now, what's interesting though is that the DC Defenders weren't the winners of the league last year, but they still seem to be one of the most hyped teams going into the season. So the Birmingham Stallions have a little bit of an advantage in that way. But we do have a postseason prediction, of course, with how I line things up. The DC Defenders and St. Louis Battlehawks will face off in DC, while the Houston Roughnecks will then go over to Birmingham to face off against the Stallions. My prediction for the DC Defenders versus St. Louis Battlehawks, I think the DC Defenders will take it. I would love to see the St. Louis Battlehawks. Seems like they're, again, one of those passionate teams, one of those more glowing teams that would really benefit from a really good run, but I think the DC Defenders seem too good to be just taken out in the first round. The Birmingham Stallions and the Houston Roughnecks, again, not the most exciting choice in the world, but I'm going to go with Birmingham Stallions. Let's just go and say the two best teams, they're top to bottom, seem like the number ones clearly in their conference. I'll be honest with you. Looking at this and looking at the St. Louis Battlehawks, looking at the Renegades, looking at the Roughnecks, there seems something like always holding them back at least a little bit, while the Birmingham Stallions and the DC Defenders just seem top to bottom ready to win. So why not? It seems like, especially from looking at the leagues last year, aside from the Renegades, there wasn't many surprises going into the postseason. The Renegades were like the one surprise. So granted, one surprise out of like 16 teams, I guess, is still decently good, but still, I just can't go into this league thinking, okay, here's an upset, and just randomly predict things. I have no credit to be predicting, to be honest with you. But if I'm going to go ahead and make a bold prediction for the actual championship, I think DC Defenders go all the way. Again, if I'm looking at comparing the rosters and comparing the coaching staff from what everybody online is telling me, from what the track record of all the teams are, I just think the DC Defenders will have a slight advantage. Now, this could go either way, obviously, so I'm not going to say anything about that. By the way, it's also, the championship is played in St. Louis, so it would be really cool for the St. Louis Battlehawks to win, but as a result, I just think the DC Defenders are just going to edge it out, make it all the way through the postseason. Without further ado, it's also time for the Week 1 rankings and predictions. Week 1 power rankings and predictions section of the video, because that was pretty quick and easy. We got the preseason predictions out of the way. I could separate into a whole nother video, but it's not very substantial enough for me to feel like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and showcase this for y'all. So on screen now, you'll see the Week 1 power rankings going into the season. What teams I think are going to be 1 through 8 right now, in terms of power level, in terms of the momentum they have. And I did this objectively. Again, this is going to be practice for me going to the NFL season. But San Antonio Brahmas, one of the worst teams last year in the XFL. And they just don't have a whole lot of momentum going for them. There's a lot of things question mark for them. So I think right now it's safe to put them in the 8th spot. The Memphis Showboats are just a team that was like middle of the road and didn't have much upside, and a lot there's nothing I have complaining about them, but there's nothing I have to showcase like, oh, they're going to do well. So I'll put them in the 7th spot because at least every other team has momentum or something going for them. The St. Louis Battlehawks, as well as I think they're going to do this season, right now they don't have much backing it up. Again, they weren't in the championship conference for the XFL, so they weren't able to make it and solidify that kind of momentum going for them, while the Michigan Panthers seemed like they were able to kind of gain some momentum and actually make it a little bit further, or at least do better in a more competitive league. So I'm going to give the St. Louis Battlehawks number 6, while the Michigan Panthers take number 5, so that's the switch around there. You can argue that one way or the other. I'll be more than happy seeing Battlehawks at 5, Michigan Panthers at 6, but I thought that'd be appropriate for now. The Roughnecks, again, being one of the better teams, I think, laid out going into the season. I think number 4. I think 1 through 3 is just, you can't touch them the way they are right now. And number 4, I think the Roughnecks, are the most competitive team outside of the top 4. Outside the top 3, because they just have the roster, they have the coaching staff that was able to kind of have some upset teams, ability to upset teams. Now, when it comes to 1 through 3, I, of course, put the 2 championship winners, the Stallions and Renegades, at number 1 and 2, because they are the ones that have proven it last season. Again, that's my rule. The Super Bowl champions last season kind of are number 1 and 2. And I guess that's technically how it works with DC Defenders at number 3. But the Stallions, I think their competitor didn't make it. So 1 through 3 is by default these 3 teams, with the DC Defenders by default at number 3. It's because the DC Defenders seem like one of the best teams going into this, but they also lost their game against the Renegades. So I can't really say, hey, the DC Defenders are definitely good until they beat the Renegades. You know, that type of deal, or at least show that they can beat the Renegades. But the Renegades at number 2, because again, the Stallions look so much better. They look like the team. It's kind of like similar to this. It's like the Stallions are like the Eagles from the previous year, while the Renegades are like, oh man, I don't even know what to say. Oh man, the Bengals, I don't know, something like that. Because the Eagles were a proven team that made the Super Bowl, while the Bengals, the previous 2022 year, were really good but weren't able to, have more upset value, I guess. That's kind of the best way to explain it. In terms of NFC type deal, or sorry, not NFC, the USFL teams, I just think the Stallions are far and away the best team, and I think they're going to be the top spot right now. I think they deserve the top spot. They have the best roster, most proven. That's how we're going to go with it for now. Now, going into predictions, I'm going to kind of put a check mark. This is the weekend slate. I'm going to keep it simple for the first week. I may change it as time goes on. But we have each of these games on screen, Saturday, March 30th and Sunday, March 31st, for all the weekend slate games. The Birmingham Stallions will face off against Arlington Renegades. And actually, there are some lines here for what's called the FanDuel to kind of, have some lines for them and see who's going to be some winners here. The Birmingham Stallions are minus 3.5 favorites against the Renegades. I think the Stallions are going to win pretty easily. I think this is a kind of honestly a lower line than I thought there would be, but the over-under is 41.5, so obviously they expect points. And again, all these are pretty much around the 40 mark, so we'll see how those go. But I'm going to take the Stallions pretty easily here. There may be a away game, but I just can't see the Renegades winning this game. St. Louis Battlehawks versus Michigan Panthers. I think it'd go either way, but again, I think the momentum's going to be on the Battlehawks side in the end, and they're going to be able to beat the Michigan Panthers. Again, I think the Michigan Panthers are better on paper and going into the season, but I just think the Battlehawks are going to be able to edge one out against them. But the Battlehawks are technically favorites here, I believe. They are minus 6.5 favorites, which is kind of a little bit weird. Doesn't seem like there's much of a difference. It's actually the biggest spread of the time, so sure, I guess maybe you could put the Battlehawks at number 5 for the power rankings, but it just seems like from everything I saw, the Battlehawks deserve to be number 6 because there were so many question marks, so much kind of to be determined for that team. Then you got the DC Defenders versus the Brahmas. I think this will be a no contest for me in my mind. I think the DC Defenders look top to bottom really good, while San Antonio Brahmas still have a lot of questions to answer, and maybe they'll get better throughout the season, but week 1 against one of the best teams in the league, I think not. Then you get the Memphis Showboats versus the Houston Roughnecks. Oh, by the way, DC Defenders have minus 6 favorites. The Battlehawks versus the Panthers, or not the Battlehawks versus the Panthers, the Showboats versus the Roughnecks. There is no technical spread, so it's pretty much dead even. The person that has the slight advantage is the Showboats with minus 115 in money line versus the Roughnecks minus 105. So take it either way. It's actually kind of curious how the line is right now. So the Showboats are technically the favorites, but I'm going to take the Roughnecks here to win at home. I think it's a really close team. I think the Memphis Showboats will just not have enough pieces put together, while the Roughnecks are going to be established and ready to go. So that's kind of my predictions for these teams going into the week 1. So that's kind of it for me. This is the video. It's pretty quick and easy. From now on, how the videos will work is that it'll be recap power rankings predictions, and I'll make that kind of a series. So we'll recap the previous week, we'll show you quick power ranking changes, and then we'll predict the games going forward. So we'll see how long these videos actually end up being in the future. I just figured it's better to put this one video together for a 20-minute video or 15-minute video, whatever, instead of just making two like 7.5 to 10-minute videos, whatever. Just kind of trying to spread out something I have no reason spreading out, because this is something I want to kind of invest 1 week kind of the season, 1 week out of, or 1 day of the week for the next 10 weeks to kind of cover it and just kind of give my insights to it all and see what we can all digest. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video of just me showing off the UFL and how things will go and shape up. Thank you guys for watching. StraightA Dawson, out of here.